with us. The topic of the next press conference is the situation on the temporary occupied territories of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Oleksandr Tkachuk, the head of the SBU apparatus, Security Service of Ukraine. Good afternoon. We would like to share some information with you that our service received on the situation of on the temporary occupied territories of Donetsk and Luhansk regions. Last week, if you remember, during the briefing, we were saying that Vladislav Surkov came to Donetsk and they were planning to liberate Minister of Foreign Affairs Kaufman. Now Zakharchenko removed him from that, not liberated, fired. Zakharchenko fired him, and we are waiting for a new minister of so-called DNR to be appointed, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Madam Nikanorova. Also, we would like to draw your attention to the events around the former commander of Vostok Battalion Khodakovsky. He's the former Security Service employee. There's information about his possible liquidation, but we also have the information that he's about to be fired, and there are possible radical, and there's the possibility that there would be some radical actions against that person implemented by Russian special forces. Also Bezler, who all of you know, the leader of the terrorists in Gorlivka. Bezler now is on the territory of the temporarily occupied Autonomous Republic of Crimea. Also, another person was fired, and that's the head of the Commission on Exchange of Prisoners, Madam Rodionova, because the separatists accuse her in high treason. That's on the information on the leadership of terrorist organizations of DNI and LNR. I would like to draw your attention that the total situation has worsened in Lugansk and Donetsk region. There were some meetings in Sverdlovsk, in Zoryansk, and Ravinki, and that was because the criminal situation there has worsened, deteriorated. Also, talking about criminal actions, the servicemen of so-called People's Militia of LNI involved into that. Also, the authorities of occupied territories are collecting money. They are demanding that the entrepreneurs pay money, and they have the plan to collect 300,000 rubles from them. Also businessmen of Lugansk, Landik, Zabrutsky, Bunitska, Treheba, are accused by the leaders of occupied territories in organizing meetings, protests against the authorities which are now on these territories. And as instructed by Plotnitsky, the law enforcement bodies of LNR, they announced them missing. One of the reasons of the protests of businessmen is that there are some changes introduced in so-called tax legislation. Besides, we have the information that the total debt of Lugansk Vugilia is 480 million rubles. So the miners were not receiving any payment since October last year. And there are protests on 15 coal mines in the region. Also, Plotnitsky issued the instruction that 70 million rubles of Lugansk gas are to be transferred to the address of Russian companies to pay the debts for gas. Besides, in the illegal land groups on the territory of Lugansk and Donetsk regions, not everything is fine, and the militants are now discussing use of revolutionary methods because they're not happy with commanders and the political leadership of so-called republics. In the 1st Battalion of Territorial Defense of the 1st Army Corps, we saw the effects of massive deserting these groups, people deserting the groups, leaving the groups. Also, we have the information that causes a lot of concern. Zakharchenko issued an order about moving the doctors from medical institutions from Donetsk to Gorlivka and Yanakiyeva. And in Gorlivka and Yanakiyeva, they ordered to free all the beds so that these medical institutions, in case of necessity, can accommodate wounded people. There are most provocations made by the terrorists there, and we are treating this information very seriously, and we share that with our colleagues from the Ministry of Defense and our other law enforcement bodies. Also on the territory of the Autonomous Republic of Crimea, there will be the military training Caucasus 2016, and we do not exclude that even the President Putin will participate in some of the events, and the Minister of Defense Shoigu will be there. From the 25th of February on the territory, on the occupied territories, on temporary occupied territories of Lugansk and Donetsk regions, they are planning to have the military commission headed by the commander of the Center of Territorial Troops, General Serdyukov. That's as to the situation on the territory of Donetsk and Lugansk regions and the Autonomous Republic of Crimea. Also, we managed to liquidate another conversion center. 15% of the profit of this conversion center, and that was 7.5 million hryvnias, were wire transferred to the territory of temporarily occupied Donetsk and Lugansk regions. That conversion center operated on the territory of Odessa, Mykolaiv, Dnipropetrovsk regions, and in Kiev and Nikolaev, and it was providing services to more than 50 companies. In Dnipropetrovsk, law enforcers detained the accountant, in Mykolaiv the lawyer, and in Odessa the organizer of this whole illegal business. In total, we blocked 65 accounts in different banks, and we arrested more than 5 million hryvnias. Also, we confiscated the seals of fictitious companies and other evidence of illegal activities. The criminal case has been filed. We have received the report from our people who work in ATO zone together with the prosecutor's office. They detained the judge of Volnovakha court who demanded bribe. The criminal case has been started, and we will work together with the prosecutor's office to register all these illegal activities, to provide all the documents. Thank you, Alexander.
Представляйтесь.
Дмитро Хилюк, Уніан. У мене запитання по наших внутрішніх, так би мовити, сепаратистах.
Union Agency, Dmytro Haluk, about editor-in-chief of Inter Channel. There is the scandal about his some of his expressions, but actually I'm not about expressions, but about his earlier references about the armed forces of Ukraine and how they covered Ukraine activities of Ukrainian servicemen in the East. There is a definite threat to Ukrainian information space on behalf of this person. Thank you for your question. That's interesting topic. The way in which events are covered in social networks, the information which we get from social media, they are also observed by us. Our role is to define whether there are any unlawful activities and unlawful actions committed by this person. What is surprising, if those unlawful activities are confirmed, the question would be how such a person might get that high position in the mass media in Ukraine. Ukrinform, whether SBU carries out any investigation, and if yes, at what stage this investigation is, about those drones which surveyed our military warehouses, stock houses in Dnipropetrovsk and Zaporizhia Oblast. Thank you for your question. This was a warning case, and those drones were used to deliver the ignition materials or ignition ordinance upon the territory of those warehouses which you mentioned. Of course, we continue our work, and this is also the military contingent involved, and we work very closely with the military counterintelligence, ensuring security around deployment of military units. Ministry of Social Policy circulated a letter about strengthening control over payments to the IDPs, about postponement of those payments up to the moment when they are all double checked, and they explained that this was upon submission from SBU, why several hundreds of offenders should influence the policy of the state towards IDPs. I cannot be responsible for the circular letter disseminated by the Ministry of Social Policy, but as for the social payments related to IDPs, as far as I know, an IDP should not be just registered as an IDP, but they should reside actually on those territories. And during different hour meetings, we draw attention to the fact that many IDPs are registered, but they do not reside. And I observed how one person had been withdrawing cash from the ATM for half an hour, obviously withdrawing that money for the benefit of those people who remained in the occupied territory. So this was the reason why that checks were started. As far as I know, that we should not stop any payments for the period when this double check or this inspection continues. I think for the Thursday joint press conference of the head of the SBU service and somebody representing the Ministry of Social Policy schedule, we will see what they would say. So some weeks ago, a citizen from Kazakhstan visited Donetsk, and he wrote a lot of messages and stories showing how good those guys were, but now he came back to Kiev, and he even had stolen money from his neighbor in a hostel, and so my question is, and he was allowed just to go where he wanted by law enforcement agencies and to protect that he had lost his documents. How do the Kazakh citizen could do this, and what about accreditation? The accreditation was got by this journalist before he lost his documents. Unfortunately, we could not predict that he might be criminal, actually. Currently, we have cancelled accreditation for him. Now he has no right to stay in the ATO area. As for the features, the characteristics of the criminal actions committed by this guy, I do not know about them. Probably we should work jointly with the national police, and it looks like our service has to show more interest to him. You mentioned that militants have been preparing hospitals for bigger numbers of possible injured soldiers. Whether you double check this information? Yeah, of course, we double check such information. Recently, we got an information that prohibited heavy weaponry like tanks and artillery systems had been being deployed there in that region, and of course, we warned all our colleagues from other law enforcement agencies about that information. Of course, our units, especially like Alpha Special Forces, they are in full combat readiness to repel. You mentioned so-called fake IDPs. Who has to control whether people reside permanently on Ukrainian territory? Of course, that's a well spread trend when people just get money, not living in non-occupied territories. And about the investigation in SBU. About your first question, that is what the Anti-Terrorist Center brought to the attention of law enforcement agencies. Our aim is to prevent any fraud with the cards, bank cards, and with the payments. As for the investigation, it is carried out by the by our investigators, and the investigators had interesting findings, but I cannot speak in more detail. I cannot answer your question, sorry. Ukraine TV channel about IDPs. 150 persons are already in the list. They are deprived from those payments. How is BU and border guards formed that list? And Yatsenyuk, as the prime minister, mentioned this where frauds, not with cards, but social payments. People use fake passports and come to the social bodies to get their social security payments. As for, I do not know about security service to transfer any lists to anybody. I think that's too early about any list of people. When the interagency decision will be made, then we will inform you. The last question. 1+1 TV channel, Evgenia Garkov. I have several questions. Whether SBU is involved into investigation about murder of Starobilsk mayor, whether it is your responsibility or the Ministry of the Interior. I'm not sure whose responsibility it is as of the moment. The general logic in this sphere should be that it should be the Prosecutor's General Service and the Ministry of Interior to be responsible. The second question about Nadia Savchenko. Currently, there is information either her lawyers attended Ukraine or asking whether she might be sent to Ukraine after court verdict. There are some rumors that Fagin visited Ukraine in order to clarify this issue. Whether that's true and what discussion was about. I do not know about such visits. We have interagency center for exchange with hostages, but I am not aware about such a meeting. How do you think whether the Ukrainian party will allow Oleksandr Yerofeyev to remain in jail in Russia? This decision should be made at the political level, not at my level. And about Maidan events, how it could be that group of people appeared in Maidan and nobody could prevent this Maidan 3.1 version to happen. We should keep in mind that in a country when there is a military conflict in the capital, some people could go to the main square and express their thoughts, their ideas. I think that's positive thing in general. The other fact is that broad public did not support them. The next issue is as follows: who are those people and who are related to them? On February 19th, some perpetrators destroyed and damaged some properties in the central part of the capital of Ukraine. And as to these offenses, we have started our investigations and we classify them as hooligan activities and as a violation of public order, and any type of violence may result in violence in response. There are a lot of ways to force the authorities to make right decisions except direct violence. Can't hear the question. It's not the competence of the security service of Ukraine. This falls within the scope of the national police. Thank you, Mr. Alexander. If you wish to ask a question, you may pose them off record. Dear colleagues,